It was the dry season in the savanna. The grass had turned golden and withered, and acacia trees were scattered sparsely across the landscape. In the middle of a wide clearing where there was nowhere to hide, 7 hyenas were forming a circle. At the center stood a baby lion, no more than 2 months old, spinning in place and crying desperately. It was calling for its mother, but nowhere in the savanna could the mother be seen, and only the baby lion's cries echoed emptily through the air. The alpha hyena with a deep scar over its left eye lunged forward. Sharp teeth flashed toward the baby lion's paws, and the cub quickly backed away. But behind it, another hyena was already waiting. The moment the baby collided with it, the hyena bit down on the small tail. It was the hyena's classic hunting method. First immobilize the prey, then attack simultaneously. At that very moment, Ranger Mark Thompson's jeep burst through the bushes. The instant he witnessed this scene, he floored the gas pedal without hesitation. The jeep charged toward the clearing, snapping thick branches as it went. Mark leaped out before the vehicle had fully stopped, grabbed his rifle, and fired into the air. The gunshot tore through the savanna. The hyenas flinched, but they weren't a pack that would give up easily. They retreated about 20 meters and began cackling among themselves as if conferring. Mark pulled out his flare gun and aimed precisely at the alpha hyena's feet. The red flare exploded with a deafening roar. Only then did the pack waver. The alpha barked a short command, and the hyenas reluctantly turned and disappeared into the tall grass. But Mark knew they wouldn't go far. Somewhere on that hill, they would watch and wait for another opportunity. The baby lion stood in the middle of the clearing, trembling all over. Its small tail had a wound from the hyena bite. But fortunately, it wasn't deep. Mark approached slowly, non-threateningly. The baby lion didn't growl or run away. Instead, it took a few steps toward him and pushed its small nose against Mark's leg, crying pitifully, as if begging for help, as if pleading to find its mother. Mark looked around. No mother, no pride. Lions never leave their cubs alone. That is the iron law of the wild. But this small life had been left completely alone in the middle of the savanna. Clearly, something serious had happened. Mark couldn't leave the baby lion here. Within a minute of his departure, the hyenas would return. He pulled out his radio. "Base, this is Mark. I found a lone cub in the eastern sector. I'm going to search for the mother." He had to find the mother, and fast. Mark began searching the area for tracks. Ground pressed down by heavy feet, broken branches, piles of dung. About 50 meters away, he found deep grooves in the earth. It was the trail of adult lions. Judging by how the grass hadn't yet sprung back, it was recent. The tracks led northwest toward the hills. Mark left the vehicle and began walking. The baby lion immediately followed him with quick little steps. Though its small legs struggled to keep up, the cub stubbornly stayed close to Mark. As if afraid of being left alone again, Mark followed the tracks, continuing to discover new signs. Fresh droppings that dung beetles hadn't yet scattered. The pride had passed through here less than an hour ago. The baby lion followed Mark diligently on its small legs. 20 minutes later, they reached a dry riverbed, and Mark stopped with a serious expression. On the other side of the river, a herd of Cape buffalo was grazing. There were about 30 of them, with several massive males surrounding the group. They immediately noticed Mark and the baby lion. Especially when they caught the cub's scent, the nearest male showed signs of weariness. A baby lion meant adult lions could be somewhere nearby. The male with enormous horns raised its head, surveying the area cautiously as it slowly approached. Those horns were sharp enough to pierce even a rhinoceros's hide. Mark knew buffalo are usually docile, but when the herd feels threatened, they transform into dangerous creatures that no predator can touch. And right now, Mark was standing in the middle of their territory with a lion, albeit a young one. The male snorted, scanning the surroundings as if checking for ambushing adult lions. Then it took a few more steps closer and lowered its head. The baby lion, terrified, pressed against Mark's leg and whimpered softly. Mark knew the rules. Don't run. Don't make eye contact. No sudden movements. He placed his hand on the baby lion's head and began moving slowly to the left, step by step. Taking a detour. As Mark moved, the male suddenly stamped its foot and feinted a charge. The baby lion flinched, trying to run. Mark quickly grabbed the cub and held it in place, continuing to walk at a steady pace. His heart was pounding wildly in his chest, but his steps didn't quicken. Another male prepared to charge. Perhaps the leader was signaling danger. Cold sweat ran down Mark's back. If the buffalo herd charged now, there would be no escape. Just then, a young buffalo calf emerged from the herd. With curious eyes, watching the baby lion, the calf suddenly stood boldly between the baby lion and the massive male. Its small body shielding the lion cub as if to say, "Don't touch this small life." The male buffalo stopped, confused. The females in the herd made anxious sounds. Their maternal instinct to protect young had kicked in. Two mother buffalo approached their calf, and the male could no longer attack. Mark didn't miss this opportunity. He picked up the baby lion and slowly detoured along the riverbed. The buffalo calf held its ground until they had reached a safe distance. Mark felt warmth spreading in his chest. After that, they walked for another 30 minutes. A low rumbling sound came from beyond the hill. It was the sound of lions. The baby lion perked up its ears and let out a joyful cry. Then it ran ahead of Mark. From behind the baobab trees of pride appeared 8 adult lionesses and several cubs. The baby lion believed it had finally found its family and ran toward them with a joyful cry. But something went wrong. The nearest lioness turned toward the baby lion, flattened her ears back and let out a warning roar. The baby lion stopped abruptly. The second lioness stamped her foot. They wouldn't accept the baby lion. It was a stranger with a different scent. Then a massive male lion emerged from the pride. A young male with a full man, confidence radiating from his gait. He appeared to have just become the leader of this pride, his eyes fixed on the baby lion. The male knew instinctively this was not his cub. This cub carried another male's bloodline. The male charged. Mark instinctively stepped in front of the baby lion, spreading his arms wide. The male stopped just 3 meters away. Golden eyes stared directly at Mark. He recognized that Mark was a ranger, someone with powerful weapons, someone who could threaten the pride at any moment, the most fearsome presence to them. One gunshot could bring him down, and the entire pride could be in danger. His instinct commanded him to eliminate the cub, but his reason warned him to retreat. As the newly appointed leader of the pride, the safety of his group was paramount. He slowly backed away, but he couldn't simply retreat. He had to maintain his position in front of the pride. The lionesses were watching. Showing weakness could undermine his authority as leader. So, he let out one more loud growl. Only then did he slowly turn and walk toward where the pride was. Mark realized this was a completely different pride. They had followed the wrong tracks. Mark backed away quietly, holding the baby lion. He didn't turn his back until they were completely out of the male's sight. The problem was where to go now. They had followed the wrong path. Mark retraced his memory and returned to where he'd first found the fork in the tracks. One was from the large pride they'd just followed, and the other was the faint trail he'd ignored. Then when he arrived there, Mark looked around, catching his breath. Then he witnessed a chilling sight. On the hill, the alpha hyena with the scarred left eye and its pack were watching them. They had been tracking them all along, now less than 50 meters away. The hyenas began slowly descending the hill. Their cackling laughter carried on the wind. The baby lion hid behind Mark's legs, terrified. There was no time. The sun had begun its descent to the west. In a few hours, darkness would fall. And when darkness came, it would become the hyenas' world. Dealing with hyenas at night was nearly impossible. Mark quickly scanned the area. He found the second set of tracks he'd passed earlier. Much fainter traces, the tracks of a single lioness. It was strange. Lionesses never travel alone. They always move with their pride. But right now, Mark had no other choice. These faint tracks were his only hope. Mark and the baby lion moved quickly. Behind them, the hyenas' cackling grew closer. They were following, too. As if determined not to lose their prey. Had they walked for about 5 minutes. The baby lion suddenly lifted its nose and began sniffing. Then it bolted forward so fast that Mark could barely keep up. The baby lion seemed to have recognized its mother's scent. They burst into an open space at the foot of the hill. A lone acacia tree with a wide canopy stood there. Under the tree lay a lioness. She was massive, but she wasn't moving. Not even her ears twitched. The baby let out a sharp cry and ran to its mother, nudging her face with its nose, pushing, trying to lift her. The lioness didn't respond. Mark ran over and placed his hand on her neck. Then the lioness slowly raised her head. She was alive. But her eyes were cloudy and her breathing was heavy and labored. The baby lion cried out in joy and pressed its body against its mother's side. Mark finally saw the cause of everything. It was a trap set by poachers. The snare was securely tied to the tree, and the more the lioness had struggled, the deeper it would have dug in. The mother hadn't abandoned her cub. She had been trapped in the snare and couldn't follow her baby. That's why the cub had wandered the savannah alone and been surrounded by hyenas. All the pieces fell into place. Mark pulled out his radio. "Base, this is Mark. I need the vet team immediately." 30 minutes later, the vet team arrived. James and Sarah quickly assessed the situation. They administered a sedative and removed the snare. The lioness trembled in pain. The baby lion tried to run to its mother, but Mark picked it up. "It's okay. They are helping your mother." 4 fluids and antibiotics were administered. After nearly an hour of treatment, the lioness's breathing began to stabilize. As the sedative wore off, focus returned to the lioness's eyes. She saw her cub in Mark's arms. She made a low, soft sound. Mark quietly set the baby lion down. The baby lion staggered toward its mother and buried its small head in its mother's neck. The lioness weakly raised her head and deeply inhaled her cub's scent, the scent she had missed for a week. Then, with her rough tongue, she slowly licked the baby lion's face. The baby lion pressed its body against its mother's side. The mother also closed her eyes, holding her cub close. The peace they had finally found at the end of a long journey. A month later, Mark made his final visit. The mother and baby lion had fully recovered. The baby lion ran over, pushing its nose against Mark's leg and greeting. The mother lion also slowly approached. She no longer limped. Then she slowly bowed her head before Mark. A wild lion bowing its head before a human. It was something that should never happen. It was a gesture of gratitude, wordless, but more powerful than any words. Mark felt his eyes welling up. He had worked in the savannah for over 30 years, but this was the first time for a moment like this. The mother lion raised her head and looked directly into Mark's eyes. Those golden eyes held deep understanding. The baby lion rubbed its nose against Mark's hand one last time, then returned to its mother's side. The mother and baby lion stood side by side and began walking slowly toward the savannah, toward freedom. Mark watched them disappear into the golden grassland. The large mother and the small baby lion side by side, step by step, they vanished into the savannah's shimmering heat. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and like. We'll continue to share stories of saving lives. Thank you.